This instant is the only time there is. This instant is the only time there is. This instant is the only time there is. Well, hello, I'm Willie from the Ozarks, and I'm so glad you've come to join me to study A Course in Miracles Workbook for Students. We're reading from the original edition here on November the 4th of 2023, which happens to be a Saturday. Lesson 308, this instant is the only time there is. This instant is the only time there is. I have conceived of time in such a way that I defeat my aim. If I elect to reach past time to timelessness, I must change my perception of what time is for. I must change my perception of what time is for. Time's purpose cannot be to keep the past and future one or together. That can't be time's purpose, he says, to keep the past and future one. The only interval in which I can be saved from time is now, in the present moment. For in this instant has forgiveness come to set me free. The birth of Christ is now. Without a past or future, he has come to give his present blessing to the world, restoring it to timelessness and love. And love is ever present here and now. Love is ever present here and now. We're just trying to remove the blocks to the awareness of what is ever present here and now. Love. That's what forgiveness does. Restores us to the way that God created us. This instant is the only time there is. And the prayer says, thanks for this instant, Father. Thanks for this instant, Father. It is now I am redeemed. This instant is the time you have appointed for your Son's release and for salvation of the world in Him. This instant is the only time there is. Okay, and we finished our text reading yesterday. Wasn't that wonderful? We made it all the way through the text again. And I'm just so glad that if you've started at the beginning with me and you've made it through, congratulations. Well, let's go look in the Manual for Teachers now. Let's get it read this year. And it's only a short book, about 55 pages. And I like it because a new student can read it and learns a lot of questions can be answered. He learns a lot. In other words, it's written in the form of questions that a student would ask a teacher and how a teacher should answer. So you can read it from the level of a student, learning, getting a lot of questions answered. You can also read it from the level of a teacher, knowing how to answer those questions. Some good examples. So let's start with the introduction in the Manual for Teachers, which is at the end of the book if you have the 3-volume series that looks something like this. And of course, yours are probably not as beat up as mine. Hopefully. Mine gets about a year, and then I need another one. Introduction. The role, and I might mention right now, if you don't have a book and need one, you can get one through the jcim.net, Jesus's Course in Miracles.net. And if you just don't have the money, write me a letter and tell me why you want the book and and that you're planning on using it. I'll make sure you get a book. I'll do the best I can to make sure you get a book. Let's put it that way. Introduction in Manual for Teachers. The role of teaching and learning is actually reversed in the thinking of the world. The reversal is characteristic. It seems as if the teacher and the learner are separated, the teacher giving something to the learner rather than to himself. Further, the act of teaching is regarded as a special activity in which one engages only a relatively small portion of one's time. The course, on the other hand, emphasizes that to teach is to learn, so that teacher and learner are the same. It also emphasizes that teaching is a constant process. It goes on every moment of the day and continues into sleeping thoughts as well. You know, I heard someone say the other day, the most important 5 minutes of your day is the 5 minutes right before you go to sleep, because you're setting the stage for what the mind will be considering during that 8 hours of rest. So I would encourage you on that idea, be sure to have a thought of God. Do your lesson, at least the last minute or two. The last 5 minutes sounds a good idea too. But just the last little portion before you actually close your eyes to sleep, regardless of what you've been doing or where you're at, that last as you're falling asleep, let it be a thought of God and of love and of your unity with everyone, yoga, your union, and of thankfulness, appreciation. Do your lesson for the day and let that thought, every night when I go to sleep, the last thing I usually think about is my lesson, or at least towards the end. You know, it's kind of hard to tell when you're actually falling asleep and when you're still awake. But I usually bring that lesson, and I know I've really been thinking about it. When I wake up in the morning, do I remember the words of the lesson? Does it just, and usually it comes right out. I mean, like last night when I went to sleep, this instant is the only time there is. And when I woke up this morning, it was, this instant is the only time there is. It was on my mind. And I'd encourage you to do just that. Take advantage of that sleeping time as learning how to love, removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. Paragraph 2, to teach is to demonstrate. There are only two thought systems, and you demonstrate that you believe one or the other is true all the time. From your demonstration, others learn, and so do you. The question is not whether you will teach, for in that there is no choice. The purpose of the course might be said to provide you with a means of choosing what you want to teach on the basis of what you want to learn. You cannot give to someone else, and this you learn through teaching. Teaching is but a call to witness, to attest to what you believe. It is a method of conversion. This is not done by words alone. Any situation must be to you a chance to teach others what you are and what they are to you. No more than that, but also never less. 3. The curriculum that you set up is therefore determined exclusively by what you think you are and what you believe the relationship of others is to you. In the formal teaching situation, these questions may be totally unrelated to what you think you are teaching. Yet it is impossible not to use the content of any situation on behalf of what you really teach, and therefore learn. It is impossible not to use the content of any situation on behalf of what you really teach, and therefore learn. To this, the verbal content of your teaching is quite irrelevant. It may coincide with it or it may not. It is the teaching underlying what you say that teaches you. Teaching but reinforces what you believe about yourself. Its fundamental purpose is to diminish self-doubt. Wow, catch that. The teaching but reinforces what you believe about yourself. Its fundamental teaching but reinforces what you believe about yourself. Its fundamental purpose is to diminish self-doubt. This does not mean that the self you are trying to protect is real, but it does mean that the self you think is real is what you teach. This does not mean that the self you're trying to protect is real, but it does mean that the self you think is real is what you teach. Paragraph 4. This is inevitable. There is no escape from it. How could it be otherwise? Everyone who follows the world's curriculum, and everyone here does follow it until he changes his mind, teaches solely to convince himself that he is what he is not. Wow, there's the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, isn't it? Just a second here. I'm trying to... Well, I thought I had a little... I was trying to get fixed up with a little clock here, and I just want to be sure I don't go over. I try to keep these down to about 25 minutes, which, you know, a lot of times I go way over that, but I never get over, I never have made it to 30. Matter of fact, I did one time and I deleted the video and redid it. This is inevitable. That's last sentence in paragraph 3. Let's do that. But it does mean that the self you think is real is what you teach. This is inevitable. There is no escape from it. How could it be otherwise? Everyone who follows the world's curriculum, and everyone here does follow it until he changes his mind, teaches solely to convince himself that he is what he is not. Herein is the purpose of the world. What else then would its curriculum be? Into this hopeless and closed learning situation, which teaches nothing but despair and death, God sends his teachers. And as they teach his lessons of joy and hope, their learning finally becomes complete. And the last paragraph for this section, 5. Except for God's teachers, there would be no hope of salvation, for the world of sin would seem forever real. The self-deceiving must deceive, for they must teach deception. And what else is hell? What else is hell except deception? Believing in an idol, something that's not real, as being real. This is a manual for the teachers of God. They are not perfect or they would not be here. Reminds me of my teacher, Charlie. He used to say, you have to have some delusion in order to manifest a body on any level. This is a manual for the teachers of God. They are not perfect or they would not be here. Yet it is their mission to become perfect here. And so they teach perfection over and over in many, many ways until they have learned it. And then they are seen no more, although their thoughts remain a source of strength and truth forever. Who are they? How are they chosen? What do they do? How can they work out their own salvation and the salvation of the world? This manual attempts to answer these questions. Okay, well, there's a nice introduction of what we're going to be studying over the next during November and part of December. Okay, let's go back and look at this instant is the only time there is, along with our associated reading, which is, what is the second coming? And as you're turning there, let me just tell you about what on earth is going on today. It's Bison Day. Bison, you know, I found out the genera of bison is bison. The species name of bison is bison. And then the subspecies, there's actually 2 varieties of bison. There's the bison, also the subspecies. So the plains bison is the bison. And the wood bison, which is actually a little bigger than the plain bison, is the bison Athabasi. So, a little bit about bisons today. That's the American bison, by the way. King Tut Day. The King Tut's tomb was found in Egypt's Valley of the Kings on this day in 1922. Learn to Homebrew Day. And just a real quick, easy recipe. My dad made some wine when I was a kid, and he didn't think it was much good. He said, I don't want that. And so I drank it. It was really good wine. He shouldn't have given it to me. 1 cup of sugar. I learned what it meant to be inebriated. 1 cup of sugar, 1 gallon of grape juice, and 1 packet of yeast. And put a little airlock on it. He put a balloon on his that lets the air out slowly, doesn't let any oxygen in. And about 3 weeks later, you'll have wine. When the balloon goes down, you'll have wine. National Book Lovers Day, National Candy Day, National Chicken Lady Day, and Chicken Lady was Dr. Dupree, and she was an educator. National Easy Bake Day, and that's a toy that actually bakes. National Play Outside Day. Well, that's a good thing to do all year long, isn't it? National Play Outside Day. National Skeptics Day, and of course I'm from the state of Missouri, and they put on their license plate, "Show Me State." A lot of skeptics here, I guess. National Waiting for the Barbarians Day. And that is a book that was written by J.M. Coetzee, a South African-born author. And it's a book about when justice is not served by the law. You know, when there's corrupt people enforcing the law and justice is not done. National Wine Tasting Day. Pumpkin Destruction Day. I'd encourage you to make something out of your pumpkin, but you may not be able to if it's all, you can always give it to your chickens though. Let them destroy it. They'll love to eat it. Break it open so they can get it to it if you don't want to eat it. Sausage and Kraut Day. Use Your Common Sense Day. You know, things like don't jump in water that you don't know what's underneath the water. Certainly don't dive into it, and don't even jump in it unless you know that it's safe, what you can't see. You know, common sense things. World Numbat Day. Numbats are a small termite-eating Australian marsupial, and their genera is Myrmecobius, and its species is Fasciatus. And you know, those things will eat 20,000 termites a day. They need that many to survive, evidently. And then I want to tell you about another mulberry, and this one is the Dwarf Weeping Mulberry. Out of Edible Landscaping, our weeping mulberry is a black fruiting weeper. Mature tree size, 12 foot tall and wide. Get one for the kids. They make a great playhouse. Or how about a summer outdoor shower stall? Fruits are not as large as our other black mulberries, but are very good. Stake young plants for the first few years. Space them 10 to 12 foot circles, and they're good in zones 3 through 9. And that is your Dwarf Weeping Mulberry, which is a Morus alba. Okay, now let's go look at our text, not our text, I'll have to get used to not saying text now. I'm trying to get my things so the wind won't blow it. What is the second coming, which is our associated reading with today's lesson? This instant is the only time there is. And there's a lot in this, and that's why I read it every day for 10 days. And I would encourage you to read it a little slower than I read it now, and really let it soak in. What is the second coming? Christ's second coming, which as sure as God, is merely the correction of mistakes and the return of sanity. It is a part of the condition which restores the never lost and reestablishes what is forever and forever true. It is the invitation to God's Word to take illusion's place, the willingness to let forgiveness rest upon all things without exception and without reserve. It is the all-inclusive nature of Christ's second coming that permits it to embrace the world and hold you safe within its gentle advent, which encompasses all living things with you. Well, that speaks of union, yoga, oneness. Encompassing all living things with you. There is no end to the release the second coming brings, as God's creation must be limitless. Forgiveness lights the second coming's way, because it shines on everyone as one, and thus is oneness recognized at last. The second coming ends the lessons which the Holy Spirit teaches, making way for the last judgment, in which learning ends in one last summary that will extend beyond itself and reaches up to God. The second coming is the time in which all minds are given to the hands of Christ, to be returned to spirit in the name of true creation and the will of God. The second coming is the one event in time which time itself cannot affect. For everyone who ever came to die or yet will come, or who is present now, is equally released from what he made. In this equality is Christ restored as one identity, in which all sons of God acknowledge that they all are one. And God the Father smiles upon His Son, His one creation, and His only joy. Pray that this second coming will be soon, but do not rest with that. It needs your eyes and ears and hands and feet. It needs your voice. And most of all, it needs your willingness. Let us rejoice that we can do God's will and join together in its holy light. Behold, the Son of God is one in us, and we can reach our Father's love through Him. All right, let's look at our text, our reading once again. And I'd encourage you at the end of this to spend a little time, maybe go into your meditation, spend a few minutes in the quiet. This instant is the only time there is. I have conceived of time in such a way that I defeat my aim. If I elect to reach past time to timelessness, I must change my perception of what time is for. Time's purpose cannot be to keep the past and future one. The only interval in which I can be saved from time is now. For in this instant has forgiveness come to set me free. The birth of Christ is now. Without a past or future, He has come to give His present blessing to the world, restoring it to timelessness and love. And love is ever present, here and now. Those last sentences, the birth of Christ is now, without a past or future. The birth of Christ is now, without a past or future. It's going on whether you have a body or not. You might as well wake up to the reality of what's going on. The birth of the Christ that's alive and fine and well, and you can be born into that realization now. He has come to give His present blessing to the world, restoring it to timelessness and love. And love is ever present here and now. This instant is the only time there is. Thanks for this instant, Father. It is now I am redeemed. This instant is the time you have appointed for your Son's release and for salvation of the world in Him. Okay, conflicting wishes cannot be my will. Okay, well, let's see what we can do about take the last couple minutes or so and this instant is the only time there is. 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 And what is the second coming? Pray that this second coming will be soon, but do not rest with that. It needs your eyes and ears and hands and feet. It needs your voice. It needs your voice. And most of all, it needs your willingness, most of all. Let us rejoice that we can do God's will and join together in its holy light. Behold, the Son of God is one in us, one in us. And we can reach our Father's love through Him, through our brothers and sisters. This instant is the only time there is. 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 This instant is the only time there is.